dutch him when I run up on her. If you doing catch you killing from her. We painted black, we say it's trap for her. Double bad, muffle mad for her. You know I'm double dutching when I run up on her. If you doing catch you killing from her. We painted black, we say it's trap for her. Double bad, muffle mad for her. I'm getting high off life, my nigga roll up. The bitches catching corn, take as soon as they blow us. With a credentials, I'm killing angels with instrumentals. Motion pictures, never scripted lyricals, a monument. Why he willing, plotting, so just watch him. Set him up again. Get your paper, fucking hater, kill him later. I'm an actor born veteran, we bring him out and get it.
It's not exactly professional for one to derail their own series to whine, bitch, and moan about things beyond one's control, but that's what this installment's all about. Yeah, never mind that Genesis DC or whatever he's calling himself now did this before, and did it better. I'm tired of noting these problems in my head for hours on end and never saying anything about them. In any case, if it doesn't pan out, you can just mark this one off as filler. And before I begin, I'd like to point out some disclaimers, even though I know damn well that no one's going to pay attention to them. I know that what I'm going to say is strictly an opinion. I know that I'm not some fighting prodigy. Hell, I've only been playing them seriously since 2007. I know that the Fighting Gem series is no different from any other soapbox that abrasive, nasal voice shut-in nerds used to pretend that they know anything about video games. And I know all too well that I've got no authority to talk about anything like this because I never made a fighting game myself, and the only reason anyone subscribes to this channel is because I put up the King of Fighters 11 soundtrack first, and they're hoping for lightning to strike twice. In other words, I know pretty much every criticism you have against me, so spare me the hassle and don't clog up the comment section with annoying comments. Just, talk about what I'm going to talk about here, please. Besides, if a twit like me can notice these problems, it's fair to say that they're both obvious and annoying enough for anyone else to take notice of them too. Now that that's off my chest, I guess I should get this love fest started. It's pretty safe to say that with all the unique ideas and customs that different types of fighting games have produced, the genre has spawned its own subculture with its own subtle nuances, much like other genres such as JRPGs, RPGs in general, and platformers. There are tons of in-jokes, references, gameplay concepts, and jargon that are either exclusive to or stem from the genre. And where jargon is concerned, there's one term that I've been hearing more often lately: the fighting game community. The idea that all the different factions and fans of different types of fighting games, the Doujin buffs, the 3D fans, the 2D aficionados, and those rare oddballs that play pretty much everything, among others, all have some sort of common denominator, an underlying connection that goes beyond borders and creates a web of information across different countries, mostly through the internet. And to be honest, that is a pretty good way to look at it. I mean, one of the big parts of this genre is competition between human players. Focused competition pops up in almost every type of fighting game, even when the game isn't really made with that sort of thing in mind. So naturally people would try and get in touch to talk shop and share information and discoveries, or just to talk trash. And you've got a bunch of different smaller scenes for different nations. There's Japan, Europe, Mexico, Brazil, and the US, just to name a few. But if this really is some sort of community, it's got to be one of the sorriest and most vindictive, warmongering, pitiful, butthurt communities I've ever had the displeasure of being lumped in with. So many people throw a shit fit when something doesn't play out the way they fantasized and fapped about to the letter. And I can't figure it out for the life of me. It's not enough for a game to be good. Oh no. If a person can't excel at it, they seem to feel an overwhelming need to hop on the internet and post a manifesto on 6 different forums about how the game sucks major ass, and compare it to another game that, in a surprising coincidence, they just happen to kick major ass in. And may Gunpei have mercy on the game that these people can't afford or get to play at all. Goodness gracious, there are people trying to boycott Tatsunoko vs. Capcom from coming stateside because they think it'll force Capcom to churn out Marvel vs. Capcom 3 faster. Never mind that it was only hinted at by the head of Marvel Studios without any sort of confirmation from Capcom themselves. No, It's on the Wii, and it's about old Japanese superheroes, so it's got to be an abomination. By the way, I've always found it interesting how these Marvel fanatics skim over the fact that it was Marvel that ran off with Electronic Arts to make Marvel Nemesis Rise of the Imperfects. You guys remember that game? No? Well, that's because the gameplay was as negligible as the characters that they whipped up for it. And remember, this was before EA started gaining back some integrity with games like Mirror's Edge and Dead Space. This was when they were on the verge of turning out NFL Head Coach and touting Black as a game that would tear the concept of the FPS to shreds. That's the EA that Marvel hopped all over like a crazed cat in heat. But no one ever points that out because it's much easier to add legitimacy to an insanely flawed argument by taking pot shots at a game developer with a shady past. Hell, you want to start a flame war? Make a topic about a fighting game. Any fighting game at all, ever. I guarantee you in 10 hours or less, some random prick will jump in and mention how the game sucks big floppy monkey balls. And if it sounds like I'm making broad, generalized, and somewhat patronizing statements, I apologize. But at the same time, that's part of the problem. You see, as far as the community goes, there aren't actually many of us fighting game fans out there. At least not compared to the likes of, say, the RPG fan base. And to complicate matters further, the fighting game genre as a whole depends on live competition. Aside from a few notable examples, fighting the AI just doesn't cut it. And keep in mind that the standard form of competition in the present day is online play. Not everyone has a circle of friends that plays these games, so it's much more likely that you'll end up online, where you step into the ring with a complete stranger. So with all these factors, there's a much higher chance of fighting a string of complete bastards before you manage to get to a relatively normal person. And when things are that bad, something has to change. My guess is that as people grow up and stop taking things so seriously, things will calm down. But it's taking so long, and I'm starting to doubt if it'll happen at all. I've mentioned the word game a bunch of times in this video, and that's what I think stuff like Virtua Fighter and Guilty Gear are supposed to be. Games. You know, structured activities performed for enjoyment and possibly education, as opposed to work, which is done for pay, or art, which is made to express ideas, you know? I can't speak for anyone else, but I can't imagine plunking down $15 to $60 to take up a second job that doesn't pay, or trying to pass off the incoherent ramblings of some 12-year-old Xbox Live troll as art. The case can and has been made that video games, like most other games, can overlap with work, much like professional sports, or it can also be a work of art, much like drawing or music, but I personally don't see that as anything to look forward to. Yeesh, thunder. Professional sporting events have been built up to be amazing and even inspirational spectacles, but they've also caused their share of misery and anguish. Take a look at football. No, not American football, the one where you actually use your feet. There you go. Now, football is responsible for a large amount of gang violence in the UK, and there are a number of cases of individual beatings based on team affiliation alone throughout the history of football hooliganism. There are also a number of incidents where people have died from mob violence, riots, or mass hysteria. The Peru riots of 1964, where 300 people died, the incident in Johannesburg, Africa, where 43 people were crushed to their deaths in their seats due to overpacking of the stadium, and the Heysel Stadium disaster of 1985, where over 600 people were injured and 39 were killed by a stadium wall that was knocked over by hysterical fans, among many, many, many others. And that's just football. There are plenty of riots and deaths that have been caused by or related to American football, rugby, hockey, baseball, and other sports. And those aren't even the sports that are based on hitting your opponent. Even chess has a mess of politics and drama more sordid than a dollar store romance novel. Could you imagine that sort of behavior happening over a KOF or Tekken tournament? It hasn't, and I hope that it never does, but people will find an excuse to fight over anything. Damn, I'm cutting it a bit close here. I think I'll just split this vid into two to duck under the time limit.